I remember when the last cohort graduated, one of the females was like, "No, I'm going to be teaching my dad on what Bitcoin
Yeah.
is," and she was really excited about it. You know, the other thing I would say is then trying to be leaders in their own communities as well. Remember, one thing I would mention about African females, they're very entrepreneurial. It's not just me.
Yep.
I think because the African setup makes the woman, or the woman is actually the matriarch of the home, right? So she's sort of the builder of the home in our tradition, in our culture. So it sort of gives her more confidence to be a leader in her community in terms of teaching other females, teaching the kids, teaching their counterparts, and even just trying to start the home in the right direction, which
Yep.
also, creates an impact in that society. So those are some, other than financial independence and financial empowerment, those are some of the things that I can be able to say I've seen in the lives of these females that I've been training.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you again for listening. We are here today with a special guest, Lorraine Marcel Atieno. Please correct me if I pronounced any of that wrong. Was that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. um, I'm going to give a quick introduction and then allow Lorraine to introduce herself. She is the founder of Bitcoin Dada. From what I understand, Dada means sister in Swahili, and this is an organization that empowers African women through Bitcoin. She's also an event planner and a marketing consultant. But let you take over from there. Please introduce yourself. Let the audience know who you are and what you do.
Well, thank you so much for having me on your show. It's a delight and an honor to always do this podcast and try and get Bitcoin Dada out there. So I was truly honored when you asked. So my name is Lorraine Marcel Atieno. I am the founder of Bitcoin Dada, which is a female-centric entity where we try to empower the African female through not only Bitcoin education, but also financial education, which is very important to us, right? What we do is basically, like I said, it's just online classes where the ladies come and learn about money as a whole and Bitcoin. We do this every Tuesdays and Thursdays at 9 p.m. Initially, we started with Kenya because that's where I'm from, but now we have grown to other countries. Like our last cohort 4, we had students from Rwanda, we had students from Nigeria, we also had students from South Africa. So it's really growing. We started last year, May 2022. It's been 1 year of great success. And also we had our challenges as well. So in a nutshell, that is what Bitcoin Dada, and I can't wait to get deeper into what we've done.
Very cool. Thank you. I want to come back to why it's particularly important to empower women when it comes to Bitcoin. But I also just wanted to rewind a little bit further back to when you first found Bitcoin and what your initial thoughts about it were.
Okay, interesting question. So like you said, I'm an events organizer, right? So mine was more of chance and fate when I actually stumbled upon Bitcoin. Actually got a gig for a blockchain company. So at the time, it was 2017, 2018, we had just had the bull run. So there was a lot of hype around blockchain, and every blockchain company was trying to get the African market, right? A lot of companies were trying to get into the African market, hosting gigs, launching products, blah, blah, blah. So a friend of mine introduced me to these guys who were launching an exchange in Kenya, right? So I did the particular gig, and that is when I heard about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies as a whole.
Mm.
At that particular time, I thought of Bitcoin as a speculative tool because that is how the message was relayed to me. Back then, there was a lot of misinformation, and unfortunately, I did not have somebody to guide me through it. So I went with the information that I found out there. And because these companies wanted numbers as opposed to actually selling the right thing or relaying
Mm.
the right information, they just wanted people to invest in their products and in their tokens and all these shit coins. So yeah, being an entrepreneur, I'm actually I'm an entrepreneurial person, right? So being an entrepreneur, I just wanted to make an extra buck. And in Africa, things is not as easy as probably outside there. So when you get an opportunity, and especially for Kenyans, the youth in Kenya, we really try to grab onto it. So this is a new technology and everybody's thinking, oh my God, I cannot, there's that fear of missing out, right? So definitely I went down the shitcoin casino and yeah, I did make money, and also I did lose a bit of money as well. So there was a lot of uncertainties. It was always up and down, up and down. And yeah, for me, Bitcoin was more of a speculative tool as what I consider it right now.
Yep. Interesting. That's great. And thank you for the honesty. I think at some point it seems to be the case that everybody goes to as what you referred
Yeah.
to as the shitcoin casino. We all have, speculative urges as human beings. I don't think it's terrible, but it's obviously important to learn a little bit more about what separates Bitcoin from the rest of the cryptocurrencies or crypto assets out there. And on that note, I was curious as to what that learning process looked like for you. And then when did you get comfortable sharing the knowledge that you have? And was that anxiety provoking at all?
Okay, interesting. So this is actually the first time I think I'm going to say this live. Well, really not live, but on video.
Okay.
So when I started my Bitcoin journey, right, or my crypto journey, let me put it that way. In 2019, when COVID hit, I just wanted to make money, right? So I was doing forex trading to pay my bills. And at the same time, here's something interesting. As I continued learning about Bitcoin, because Bitcoin was the only coin that had not disappointed me, or the only technology or
Mm,
project that had not disappointed me, I started teaching females about the space, the blockchain space, not really Bitcoin space. So I had this thing called She in Blockchain. I think I still have some pages named after that, She in Blockchain. So She in Blockchain in my head back then was I was trying to be the bridge between females who want to learn about the blockchain space or this
yep.
new tech, but don't have the time to attend these events. They don't have people who can actually give them this information in a relatable or a genuine manner, right? Because we had a lot of people who take advantage of newbies back then. Even still, it happens still now. So
Sure.
that is what I was aiming at with Sheen blockchain. But like I said, I wasn't really training females on Bitcoin alone. It was blockchain and the entire cryptocurrency. So I was charging a fee at that particular time, right? It wasn't really serious because that was in my own interest. As much I was trying to be like the light for these females, I was also charging them. For me, it was until the COVID-19, until now we can go back to what we are going to do. Let me make a back on the information that I know, right?
Sure.
Um, so when the world opened up 2021, 2022, I got a gig again, chance and fate. Somebody in the crypto space told me like, hey, we have a Bitcoin meetup coming up, and I think you'd be the best person to organize it, right? So I did organize that particular event. I think it was not really think, it's a fact. Paco was coming into Kenya to meet the Bitcoiners that were already in existence. So I did organize that particular event. I think I only knew two people at that particular event, only two Bitcoiners at that event. So that event was mainly composed of men. We were like only just two females, right? Out of, I think, I don't know how many men. So remember, I didn't go to that particular event as a Bitcoiner, but I went there as an event organizer. But I
Okay.
sat throughout the whole conversation, and it was amazing. And I got to learn a lot, and I saw the resilience. I saw the passion that these Bitcoiners, and even to some extent, some toxicity around Bitcoin and
Yeah.
cryptocurrencies. So for me, it was at first, it was a bit scary, when men become passionate about something, it comes off as a bit rough, right?
Yeah.
It comes out as a bit rough. So, but it really was intriguing to me, and I was like, okay, there has to be a reason why this bunch of men are really into Bitcoin, right? So I think I was orange pilled at that particular meetup, the
Okay.
meetup that I went to organize. For me, it was just I make money and then that's it. but I actually became orange pilled. And the idea of Bitcoin Dada was formed from that, because I shared the idea of she in blockchain with several Bitcoiners. And they were like, we like your idea, but you'd rather do it, you'd rather focus on Bitcoin, right? So I
Mm.
went, um, fortunately, I got introduced to, there's a lady called Aileen Osorio. She is the what? She's a podcaster. She is the owner of the Misfit. So we together we came up with the curriculum, right? And then my first cohort, I remember it was composed of my friends, right?
Okay.
Because you actually start with the circle around you. So there were
Yep.
like around 20 females, so within my circle. And like you said, yes, for me, introducing Bitcoin and Bitcoin only to this female was terrifying, right? I was scared, but I
Could
had
I
to do
stop
it.
just to ask why? What made you scared?
First, before I started Bitcoin Dada, before we started the classes, I started following different people. I actually went into the Bitcoin Twitter, and I would see what people were doing, and I was like, "Yo, am I really sure?" Like, I'm not even a techie person. I'm not even a
Yeah.
tech person. Like, am I sure I'm going to do this? Is it worth it? But then I'm looking at Kenya, and I'm looking at Africa, and I'm looking at the models that we have as African females. We really don't have that much of representation. Right now it's better. But when I started Bitcoin Dada, I think even right now, I think I can be able to count the African females, African Bitcoiners, who are females in Africa. So I was like, you know what? Fuck fear. What's the worst that can happen?
Good for you.
What's the worst that can happen? No one is going to come and beat me and tell me like, yo, you failed. So I just said, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this and see what happens, because at the end of the day is, what if you succeed? There's always the fear of,
Yep.
what if you don't, but what if you succeed, right?
Yep.
So, and after the first cohort, I started seeing a lot of interest from females. The first cohort graduated, and other females were like, "Whoa, this thing exists in Kenya. This thing is actually there." So a lot of females started talking about Bitcoin Dada and started applying. So I became more and more confident, and especially when I started getting the support from the Bitcoin community, retweeting what I'm doing, just trying to amplify what I'm doing out there in terms of support. Others started volunteering to come and teach our classes, which for me was really great. Having maybe people from the international space coming to join the classes. Others just decided to sit in and listen. This would encourage the students that, other than Marcel, there are also other people who are actually in this space.
Yep. Yeah. Amazing. And yeah, I'm very happy that you did push through the fear, because it seems like you're having an incredible impact on a lot of these women. And you've talked about, now you've had, I think it's a little over 100 people 100 women in total go through Bitcoin
Mhm.
Dada. Or
Mhm.
I'm curious as to what are some of the things you're teaching them. Is it largely philosophical? Is it practical? Is it a mix of things? And then also, what sort of effect do you see it having on women? What are you seeing in sort of their personal lives? How are they feeling afterwards? How are their lives changing afterwards?
Okay, that's a really interesting and wide question. I hope I can
That's okay.
summarize.
Could if I could contextualize it? So I think that what I tried to, the basic concept of this podcast is really this idea that, um, you know, it's a little bit grand, the idea, but that the the previous Renaissance in Italy, in northern Italy, in the late 1400s. I'm sorry, further back than that was what came before that was the advent of double entry bookkeeping. So basically this modern accounting method. And I think that a new Renaissance will be built on this open ledger system, this open sort of bookkeeping system that is Bitcoin. And so what I'm interested in is not just, and I am to some degree, people accumulating wealth, but then what is then the human capital kind of experience? What are people then expressing? What are they then doing with their life once they maybe have a little bit more financial understanding and a little bit more financial, a feeling of financial empowerment? So that's a little bit of context for the question, if that
Okay.
helps at all.
So like you said, I've like taught over 100 people on Bitcoin, and let me just say, it's not only females. Well, majority of my students, well, really not my students, majority of the people that I teach and train are females.
Yep.
But we do have also physical events that are open to all genders. So that includes both male and female, right? But I speak about my students. So other than the financial empowerment, there's also the instillment of confidence when it comes to probably making financial decisions. You're seeing being able to actually make wise decisions when it comes to investment opportunities. You're able to see them having even conversations with their male counterparts. That is
Yep.
something they actually they get excited over it. I remember when the last cohort graduated, one of the females was like, "No, I'm going to be teaching my dad on what Bitcoin
Yeah.
is," and she was really excited about it. You know, the other thing I would say is then trying to be leaders in their own communities as well. Remember, one thing I would mention about African females, they're very entrepreneurial. It's not just me.
Yep.
I think because the African setup makes the woman, or the woman is actually the matriarch of the home, right? So she's sort of the builder of the home in our tradition, in our culture.
Yep.
So it sort of gives her more confidence to be a leader in her community in terms of teaching other females, teaching the kids, teaching their counterparts, and even just trying to start the home in the right direction, which
Yep.
also, creates an impact in that society. So those are some, other than financial independence and financial empowerment, those are some of the things that I can be able to say I've seen in the lives of these females that I've been training.
That's amazing. Yeah, thank you. That's sort of the effect I was hoping to hear. That's really great to hear. I was actually amazed. I've lived in different parts of Africa, and especially in Ghana, I was amazed at the amount of women who were in. I used to work at help to develop a trade school there, and the amount of women who were learning business. It didn't hit me until I saw it with my own eyes. You can hear about maybe through the UN or something the importance of sort of women's education and all of this, but until you see it with your own eyes and sort of women learning, obtaining this knowledge, applying it to their life, it really doesn't have. It had a tremendous impact on me to see that with my own two eyes. So it's great to hear that something similar seems to be happening as a result of what you're doing, and I commend you for doing it. I think that's really important. It's great. You talked about events. You just hosted a very cool event, which was, I believe, centered around the release of Machankura, which is it's sort of it's a system in which you can use Bitcoin without having to use a smartphone. So you could use like an old Nokia phone, or you could use, I think now, WhatsApp. You can use Machankura over WhatsApp. You hosted the release party for Machankura in Kenya, if I'm not mistaken, about 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I could just feel it. I was watching the videos online. It was definitely a little bit of a sense of FOMO, but also just this feeling of joy. People looked so excited, and I think even you looked excited and almost borderline surprised, maybe at how well it went. And not that I didn't think it would go well, but I think you seemed really excited, and you posted something, I think, online about it, and you said, you know, you pushed past the fear, you took a step, you had faith in your own abilities to put this event together, and it worked out. So I was hoping you could share a little bit about what it felt like to host the event, and then what it feels like to have had the event be a success.
Wow. I didn't know you actually checked that out, but yeah, thank you so much.
My
Thank you
pleasure.
so
Yeah.
much for your kind words and your interest in the event. Yeah. So for me, the event was a huge success. I have always, let me just say, I've always been skilled when it comes to organizing stuff, right?
Okay.
And somehow I've been sitting on the skills for a very long time. And I think the fear, again, won't allow me to go out and just do what I do best. So when I
Mm.
reached out to Kogatso, who is the owner of Machankura, or the catalyst behind Machankura,
Yep.
I was 50-50. But again, I was like, he would just, okay, so for me, my head was like, it's either a yes or no from him. And the funny thing is that he was actually thinking about the same, but for different African countries. So when
Oh.
I reached out to him, he was like, "Yo, I was thinking about launching Machankura in different parts of Africa, and because you come up with the idea for Kenya. Let's have Kenya be the first to launch Machankura, right?
Yeah.
So I did the proposal, set it up, and he was like, you know what, Marcel, you're the event organizer. I'm not. I'm a tech person. We all have different skills. I trust in you. Send me the invoice, do everything. I'll see you in Kenya. And that was it. So of course I didn't do it alone. I have my team of girls. I have like 4 girls who are helping me with Bitcoin Dada at this particular time. And I'm truly grateful to HRF because without them, I would not be able to actually pay them for the help that
Mm.
they give me currently. Right. So for me, Bitcoin has really helped me get out of my cocoon. Right. And I would say that cocoon is one of the reasons why I sort of was in that cocoon is because of societal norms and how we grow up here. You know, certain things are not meant to be for ladies, you know. It's like a glass ceiling that we have as we grow up, right? So for me, Bitcoin having broken different barriers on its own, I look
Yep.
at Bitcoin, I look at what Satoshi Nakamoto, and I see him as my idol, if I may say so. So anytime I fear doing something, I'm like, what will Satoshi have done? Like,
I
it's
love it.
either it would work or not, right?
Yep.
So for me, Bitcoin has really been also a catalyst in my personal development journey, and I try to also pass it on to the girls who I train as well. And funny enough, you should mention that we have, or I'm starting a mentorship program for the ladies, such that after they graduate, they actually have like a route to follow. So I am trying to see if I can train them on soft skills and also the hard skills as well. And I want to have so with Bitcoin Dada, I want to have like a talent pool where you as an organization can come to Bitcoin Dada and say, hey, I'm looking for marketers, I'm looking for content creators, I'm looking for maybe research analysts. Do you have this? And then I can tell you, like, okay, yeah, I have this. And the best thing is that they actually understand what Bitcoin is, so they can actually work for you as well. And I would also, even with that, I would want them to start having their own companies, right? Bitcoin related companies, because I believe there's a lot of talent within the ladies. And I believe the entire Bitcoin space actually would benefit from having different ideas, different outlooks from these women that are coming up.
Yep. Amazing. I love it. You used one of my favorite words when it comes to Bitcoin, which is catalyst. I think it really can catalyze amazing growth, especially as you've put it a few times now, when you can sort of get past that fear, the human growth that it catalyzes, or the potential for that, I think is massive. When I watched the videos from the event, it really seemed like there was a pretty even mix of men and women at the event. Maybe I'm a little
Yeah.
bit off, maybe. And I think that it seemed like there just seemed like a genuine vibe of everyone supporting everyone else. So it
Mhm.
didn't seem like, this is about women and, and men are invited. It just seemed like, look, we're all working together. We're going to view each other as
Absolutely.
equals in this space. Is that what it was, or am I just being overly idealistic here or
No.
optimistic here?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I would actually want to make something clear. So me running Bitcoin, that doesn't mean that I am against men. I'm just trying to
Right.
include women in the
Yep.
space, right? So that is one of the reasons why our physical events are open to all genders.
Yep.
We've never had a physical event that's only for females, right?
Okay.
So yeah, so that particular event had a mix of men and female, and it's amazing because since I started Bitcoin Dada, I've been seeing more and more women coming to our spaces or coming to our events because they know they can attend a Bitcoin Dada event and they will not be the only ones. Because I remember, let me give you an example of myself. I remember when I started in this space, there were only 2 females that, even when it came to Twitter spaces, it was either myself from Kenya or Nolene,
Nolin
right? So
Somba. Yeah.
yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
if it was not Nolin, it would definitely have been Marcel. But now, at least,
Mm,
even with the physical events, even with the Twitter spaces, I get into a Twitter space and then I see 5 of my students who have joined in, either
cool.
former or current, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so the event is actually a mix of both genders, and I'm happy to see that the male community is actually starting to accept that, hey, females can also be part of this. We can grow together. We can work side by side. We can
Yep.
contribute together. I can learn from them. They can learn from us, and and create something wider and create and continue contributing to Satoshi Nakamoto dream at the end of the
Yep.
day.
I hate to be hyperbolic or sort of again too optimistic about Bitcoin and what it can do, because I think it's important not just to be a cheerleader for it, but to talk about what it really does in reality.
Mm-hmm.
We can talk about what we hope it does, but then there's also what it actually does. But I think the nature of the asset and the network is that the more people who are part of it, the more successful everybody that holds the asset and that uses the network
Absolutely.
is. So do you think that that's an inherent part of this idea of what fosters the cooperation that you're talking about? Do you think it's the nature of Bitcoin and the sort of the social dynamics that it inherently creates amongst people who believe in it? Do you think that's part of what's um, creating this symbiosis between men and women in the space?
Absolutely. Like you said, I don't think so a lot of Bitcoiners normally have this thing that we need to get to the point of hyper Bitcoinization,
Yeah.
but we really can't get to that level when we only have a certain, gender only doing or contributing, to their space. So we do need we do need both genders or
Yep.
everybody. Let me just use the word everyone.
Yep.
Yeah, to
Yep.
contribute into the space. So yeah, you're right. Bitcoin will definitely push levels, even levels that we don't see us as
Yep.
human beings or us as Bitcoiners. It will get us to a level that we look at it and say, okay, fine. So we didn't need this kind of solution to this particular. There was a problem but we didn't see it. But now that we see it, this is the solution. Just with the example of the latest example. What was the name of this thing? Bitcoin NFTs. What was the name of the
Oh, ordinals, Bitcoin
yeah,
ordinals. Yeah,
ordinals.
yeah.
Like no
Hmm.
one really thought about it until it happened. And now
Yep.
it happened, then everybody was rushing to Lightning, and actually people saw the need for Lightning Network and
Yep.
probably future problems. So it's the same thing. So
Yep.
initially when Bitcoin came about, the role models, people who actually adopted Bitcoin and blockchain as a whole were male, right? The figures that we actually saw there were male. So it sort of created like an exclusivity,
Yep.
right? And for
Yep.
some time, it went on well until we got to the level and realized that, hey, if we do want full adoption, then we definitely want everybody on board. We cannot just have one side, one gender participating.
Yep, 100%. It's a great point. Um, there was there was one thing that I do think about a lot. I think I come from a social services background, and as an educator, I was a college lecturer for years and a teacher, and I worked in supportive housing and other social services. So I think about the importance of social services in society. Bitcoin is the separation of money from the state. I've worked, and I'm curious as to what you think. So, when money is separated from the state, um, how do you think that this benefits women in particular? And so, I think about this, like I said, from a certain perspective here in New York, where let's say, like, take an example of I know some single mothers that rely on certain social services, and obviously they can be provided a little bit more easily because the state has the money. Do you see any potential downside for women on separating money from the state, for men as well? But I'm just kind of curious because I think that there are a ton of benefits, and those benefits are very clear. Money can be less manipulated by those in power, which is really important for maintaining purchasing power and all that good stuff. But do you think that there could be any potential drawbacks as well?
Potential drawback. Well, unfortunately, here in Kenya, we do not have such kind of help given to probably single mothers.
Oh,
So if you're poor, you're poor. If you can't if you
okay.
can't afford a meal, you can't afford a meal. So unfortunately, I will not use the same example as you.
Okay. Yeah.
So for me, I think there are more advantages as opposed to disadvantages when we separate money from state. I'm
Yep.
still trying to think of any disadvantage that would have. Um, Honestly, according to how our financial structure is, um, nada,
Okay.
nothing.
That might be the most fascinating answer to any question I have asked thus far on this podcast, because I think people view Bitcoin in the United States as something very different than the way that they view it in countries where certain resources, programs, whatever support structures aren't necessarily available. What people, I think most people here would say, why would we do that? Like, look what the state provides, without necessarily thinking about, also look at some of the negative externalities of what the state does to money, or state in conjunction with central banks do to money. But that's actually really fascinating to hear, that you don't necessarily believe that those services aren't necessarily there, so it really wouldn't have that sort of negative effect. That's super fascinating, a little bit sad, but also very fascinating. So um, there's something also, one of the first people I followed in Kenya was someone named Rufus Kamau, who I think he's at, is it FX Pesa? I forget the
Yes.
name of the platform
Yeah,
he's at. And I found him through reading his pieces. I think he's a senior contributor to Forbes, and he talks about Forex trading. And I've spoken with, and then I follow Nolene Samba, who is the African correspondent for the Bitcoin Layer. I've interviewed Nick Bhatia, the head of the Bitcoin Layer. I'm a big fan of his work and his book, Layered Money. And I know Master Guantai. What is it? What's up in Kenya? Why do you guys all understand money so well? Why are you so on top of your game when it comes to this stuff?
Let me just brag about Kenya a bit.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Well, for one, we are smart. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Nigerians will come for me. Anyway, yeah, so I think one of the advantages that we have over other African countries is the way our government allows us to do something, to do stuff. Like, we are considered the tech hub of Africa, right? So any new technology that comes to Africa lands in Kenya, right? And then our youth are very curious. Very curious. I'm not sure if it's because there's the lack of job opportunities. So anything that that happens, they have to jump on it.
Yep.
Or we just have a curious-minded generation. Not sure about that, but yeah, considering that we have facilities, we have things like mobile banking that has enabled us to actually relate to things like cryptocurrencies and blockchain. It actually makes it easier for us to understand how cryptocurrencies work. And I'm talking about cryptocurrencies because majority of the people who participate in the blockchain space are not just Bitcoiners, right?
Yep.
I think the other thing would be facilities, right? The tech space. It's really open. The government supports it.
Okay.
The government has also put laws in place that actually promotes emerging technologies, right? So
Okay.
for me, that's one of the reasons why it's easy for us when we actually decide to do something or understand that particular project. It's a go for us, right? Lastly, would be the need. We actually, as an African country, we do not see Bitcoin as a speculative tool. Yes, we can actually use that and just decide to hodl for the next 10 years for those who can. But there are others who actually just don't see Bitcoin as a speculative tool. They see it as what Satoshi Nakamoto wanted it to be, a peer-to-peer,
Currency that can be a medium of exchange, right?
Right? Yeah.
Yep.
So most of the people see it as that transactions. That's why we are leading in stuff like P2P exchanges, right? It helps us when it comes to businesses, opening up the markets for us. Like, for example, myself, now I have, as an event organizer, it's very easy for me to approach any organization, be it a Bitcoin company, fintech. It could be even people just wanting to get married, married wedding destinations. It will be easier for me to come to you and say, hey, I'm an event organizer in Kenya. I know you'd love to get married in the wild, probably, and you can pay me through Bitcoin, So it actually opens the market, global market for us. So those are some of the reasons why for us, it's actually a bit easy to understand Bitcoin, work with it, and just handle our projects with an A game. Right?
Yep.
Yeah, and I believe Kenyans are very hardworking. Kenyans are very hardworking, and whatever they set their minds to, they actually do it.
I like it. That's great. Yeah, I'm super. I'm kind of hoping secretly that, well, not now. I'll just say it out loud. I'm hoping that the third African Bitcoin conference is held in Kenya, so I have a good reason to come there a year from this December. So,
We are fast underway, so so glad to see you
ah,
back.
all right, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So what's out? What's out? What's out for it?
I will. I will
Mm.
surely watch out. That's really good to hear. On that note, I was just speaking. We were speaking before this, before we started recording. We'll be meeting in person at Adopting Bitcoin in El Salvador and at the African Bitcoin conference in Ghana. I'm
Yeah.
super excited. And at both of those events, do you have a specific thing that you'll be speaking about? Is there a topic that you'll be speaking on?
Well, so for I'll be presenting about Bitcoin Dada in Ghana
Mm-hmm.
and women empowerment in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it's the same thing in El Salvador, but just with a different tweak. I'll be adding on Bitcoin circular economies in Kenya as well and Africa. So yeah, but almost the same thing.
Cool. Excellent.
Yeah.
Um, is there anything else you would like to share about Bitcoin Dada or share in general? And also, please let people know where they could find you, where they could find Bitcoin Dada online, and where and how and where they might be able to get involved.
Okay. The only thing that I would like to add from our conversation is if you can amplify the few females that we have already in the Bitcoin space and not just in Africa, please do so. We do have what we call her Bitcoin story on Bitcoin Dada. It's on our YouTube. So
Yep.
it premieres or okay, so we have episodes every Thursday on different uh, female Bitcoiners every Thursday just to try and amplify the role models that we have
Mm.
and try to get them participate, try to have newbies actually see that as females it's possible, right? That's one thing that I would say. The other thing is if you want to support us, we have our website btcdada.com. Again, btcdada.com. There's a donation button. If you feel philanthropic and you want to support our cause, please donate to us through our website. We are on Twitter as BTC_Dada. Also, Instagram, the same BTC_Dada. On LinkedIn is Bitcoin Dada. And what else can I say? Yeah, let's continue doing what Satoshi wanted us to do, push Bitcoin. Yeah, that's it.
I love
And
it.
thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. It was truly an honor. I think I've said this to one of my other guests. I used to be in the music business years ago, and part of my job was finding new acts to sign and manage. And when I look at someone like you, I see an up and coming act, someone that's going to be very popular, very well known, very respected. And I think that you're doing an incredible thing, yeah, for your country, but I think beyond just African women, women all over the world. I hope more. The first people I ever taught about Bitcoin were female, my mother and my sisters, and I have to thank my
Okay.
mother. She was the first person that told me to teach other people about it. So I actually attribute my own sort of being a Bitcoin teacher to a woman. So you are the first person. You actually, I sort of not that you called me out, but I saw what you were doing with Bitcoin Data, and I was like, okay, my first 5 or 6 guests on this podcast have been men. Let's change that very quickly. Let's get a woman involved here. So you are an inspiration to me. I'm very happy that we'll be meeting soon and hopefully be able to talk in person a little bit more. And thank you for being the leader that you are, the first female guest on this podcast, and everything else that you are and are contributing to the world. We really appreciate it.
Yay, thank you. Thank you so much for your kind words. And I can't wait to meet you. And okay, lastly, if
Yeah.
you'd want to volunteer for one of our classes, feel free, reach out to
Uh,
me.
does
Send me
it
an
happen
email.
virtually?
Yeah, it's virtually. Yeah, it's
Oh, cool.
virtually. So what happens is I normally send out the topics. So you pick whichever you're well conversant with,
Oh,
pick a
cool.
date, and then you join the class, train the lady. It's normally just 1 hour, 30 minutes. 1 hour, 30 minutes if they have a lot of questions. If not, just basically 1 hour.
Cool. I will surely sign up right after this. That's super exciting. I
Thank
would
you.
love to do that. Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Thank you. Thank
And
you
we'll
so
leave it
much.
at that. Thank you again, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.